Hey, thanks for joining. If you can see me and hear me, please put it in the chat. Okay, thanks, Priya. Priya, can you please confirm if you can see my screen as well? Hey, Shankara, good morning. Thanks for joining. Shankara, please confirm you can see my screen as well. Like I'm displaying live Q&A web accessibility along with my photograph. Thanks for confirming, Shankara. Appreciate it. We are almost at time. We'll give 2 to 3 minutes more. And while we are waiting, Shankara and Priya, and I believe there are two more of our accessibility champions who have joined, please put your use the chat feature to ask your questions. And while we are waiting, please put in the city from where you dialed in. So if you're from India, which part of India you are from? ADM, thanks for joining. We have 6 accessibility champions with us today. We'll give 2 more minutes. We'll start at 9:32. Nice. Shankara, I have been to Bangalore. I was there for 40 days. It was 2015 that I was there in Bangalore in the month of Jan and Feb. Hey Sai, thanks for joining. Which part of US are you from, Sai? Are you East Coast or West Coast? Yeah, apart from the traffic, Shankara, I love the weather of Bangalore and food, man. Food is great. Okay, we'll give 1 more minute and then we can get started. We have 7 accessibility champions with us. Okay, we are at time and we can begin our live Q&A web accessibility question and answer sessions with you today. I have received a lot of questions. I know it was a short period of time for you to ask questions, right? But this is what I received from our accessibility champions. The very first one is how much time and effort is required to learn accessibility testing and gain practical knowledge. Now, this is a very vast question, right? because what kind of accessibility testing you want to get into. Are you getting into only the web accessibility piece, or are you looking into mobile accessibility along with the PDF accessibility testing? The basic requirement I believe you can learn about accessibility is within 4 to 6 weeks. That means you start with what are the VCAG standards, have a solid understanding of what are the requirements, what are the different types of disabilities are out there on the internet, and what are the kind of assistive technologies available to make sure that those kind of disabilities or people with disabilities can use those assistive technologies and bridge the gap that we have today. So in terms of how much time it is needed, I would say anything between 4 to 6 weeks. And that's for understanding of what accessibility is, why do we need it, and how do we ensure that we are using the right tools. In terms of getting or gaining the practical knowledge, it depends how much effort you are putting in, because it's only when you are doing practically, if you're testing the applications by yourself, you will encounter new scenarios or corner case scenarios that are easily missed. So the more you practice, it becomes easier and you develop a muscle memory so that you don't have to follow the checklist that we create for our fresh web accessibility testers. But over the period of time, it becomes your second nature. The next question that is being asked is, do we need to learn all tools such as JAWS, NVDA, color contrast, and much more? The short answer is yes. You must know all about all the accessibility tools, right? But that does not mean that you have to know it at the same time. As an accessibility tester, you always start with the automated testing plugins. Like you have DQ's XDevTools, you have Level Access Accessibility plugin. Those are the primary tools that you begin with. And then you jump on to NVDA or JAWS for screen reader testing. Okay, so because it's not only about whether you are using JAWS or NVDA. So if I have to choose between these two, right, between JAWS or NVDA, I will always go with JAWS because that's the primary assistive technology used by our users. And that's being used by at the enterprise level as well. Now you might ask why JAWS is preferred over NVDA, because JAWS is a paid version, and because it's a paid version, they develop new features every year. So there are some issues that are not identified using NVDA, but those are identifiable using JAWS. So if you are covering JAWS, you are automatically covering NVDA. Now, if you're just getting started, right, NVDA is a fantastic assistive technology or a screen reader that you can use, which is free, that gives you an insight on how to use a screen reader. There are subtle differences between JAWS and NVDA, and if you need more information, I have created a full video on what is the difference between JAWS and NVDA. In terms of what tools you need to test with, you have to define a certain set of tools. Like you have to standardize it across your developer unit testing, your system testing, and your audit testing. So if you decide you're going with DQ's XDevTools, make sure your developers, testers, and your audit team members are using DevTool only. If you decided to go ahead with Level Access extension, make sure they all are using the same extension. Same is the case with the screen reader. If you decide to go with either JAWS or NVDA, make sure everyone is using the same screen reader. This is important to keep your results consistent. If you are testing with DevTools and your developers are using Level Access extension, your results will never match because they have different search engines, they have different logic built into it. No two tools are same. Please give me a like or put it in the chat if it is addressing your questions. Please feel free to use the chat feature. Okay, before we move on, I'm looking into the chat. There are a few questions. The first one is from Vishal Pandey. I'm an experienced person. How to start accessibility career? Vishal, trust me, I have this question from other testers too, and I will address at the end. So please stay with me. The other question that I have is from Manaha. He or she is asking, could you please launch mobile accessibility tutorial with practical knowledge? Yes, I have done it. I have tested with both your talkback and voiceover on your mobile devices. So if you have not seen that video, I would highly recommend it. Go watch that video. And if you require me to do a tutorial on a mobile application, I'm more than happy to do it. Just put your comment on that video. And then we have Dilip. He says, hi, I'm from Mumbai, a screen reader user. Thanks for joining, Dilip. The next question that I have received before joining this session today is the accessibility only about blind users? There are a couple of things in this question. I believe there is a high need to educate that we should always use a person first language, ensuring that we are having the right etiquettes when addressing people with disabilities. I would encourage you to use this process wherein you're saying, is accessibility only for people who are blind? So in that way, we are not labeling people, we are not labeling a disability with a person. With that in mind, no, accessibility is not only about people who are blind. There are different personas that we work for. So we work for people who are only dependent on a keyboard because of limited hand movements. We work for people who have low cognitive disabilities, who have trouble understanding the complex jargons or the languages that we use. The best way is to use simple language that a 6th to 8th grade student can also understand. Provide consistency. Ensure that you provide mechanism for error preventions in the first place, or provide mechanisms if an error has happened, how to fix it. We also work for personas for people who are deaf. So what is the way for them to understand the video that is getting played on your screens? So on internet, we work for people who are visually blind, people who are deaf, people who have limited abilities, motor abilities, and people with low cognitive disabilities. Please use the chat feature to say yes or no if it addresses your question, or give me a thumbs up or a like using the chat feature. Next one is, which screen reader should I start learning first, JAWS or NVDA? I believe I briefly touched upon it in our question number 2 when we were discussing about the tools. To begin with, always start with NVDA because it's free, it's simpler to use when compared to JAWS. Now, over the period of time, when you gain experience using NVDA and when you are working with large enterprises who have JAWS licensed versions, then you can make a switch to start working with JAWS. Because at enterprise level, JAWS is the primary screen reader that you're required to test with. There are subtle differences, like if you are jumping from one region or one landmark to another, in JAWS, you will be using R. For NVDA, it would be D. So there are certain differences, but to begin with, as a fresher, always begin with NVDA. I have another question in the chat from Sai. I'm a fresher trying to apply for accessibility jobs. I have basic idea on NVDA, completed DHS certification. Any insights on how to start my approach? Any more certification suggestions? Fine, that's a great question. That's also part of the questions that are being asked, so I will cover it in the sequence. But thanks for putting that in the chat. So next one is, how can I check the industry trends? Now, this question is very, open question or vague, I would say. My assumption is you're asking what are the trends in terms of what screen readers are being used by people, real people with disabilities, what browsers are they using, and what different kind of combination of assistive technologies they are using. So there is a website that I want to share with you. Please let me know in the chat if you can see it. Please give me a thumbs up or say yes or no in the chat if you can see my browser. So there's a website from WebAIM. What they do, they perform usability studies or surveys every year, which means they ask people what kind of assistive technologies they use, which browser do they use, which operating system do they use. Like, so for example, if I have to select this one which says screen readers commonly used, this is the response that you get. So as you can see in this table, NVDA is the one which is gaining popularity, with 65.6% of the participants saying that they use NVDA, and that's immediately followed by JAWS. So there is always a neck-to-neck competition between JAWS and NVDA, and that's why I said always begin with NVDA, but eventually you have to test for JAWS. Then at number 3 spot, we have VoiceOver with 43.9%. So in a crux, this is the website that you can use to find out what are the latest trend in terms of web accessibility, like which screen reader to use, which browser the end users are actually using. Let me see if I can put that in the chat. If not, I will be sharing this information as part of the description. Moving on, what certifications should I have and which one is the best? Now it depends what role are you trying to get into, right? So for web accessibility testers, I always suggest going with DHS Trusted Tester. And if I go back to my browser, this is the one that I'm talking about. It is from the Homeland, DHS is from the Homeland Security. They have section 508 training, and under the Trusted Testers for Web Certification program, this is the online registration link that you have to use to register for DHS Trusted Tester. I have received a lot of questions saying, Param, we are not able to find the online registration link. So this is where you have to find and use this link to register. With this certification, it gives you the credibility. It provides you with the basic understanding on how to test for accessibility. And that's your stepping stone. That's your first step to start as a web accessibility tester. And as you gain knowledge, as you gain experience, then you transition to the certifications provided by IAP. It's an International Association of Accessibility Professionals. If I go to the certifications, right, the very first certification that I would suggest is CPAC. It gives you the core understanding of why we need accessibility in the first place. What are the different types of disabilities we have? What are the different types of laws are there? What are the accessibility standards that we need to adhere to? Right? And then once you gain more experience working in the field for 3 to 5 years, then you move on to the web accessibility specialist. Because for this certification, you need to have code level understanding, which means you should be able to understand what is causing the issue in the first place and how to fix it. For this certification, you have to submit your resume that you have worked in the field of accessibility for at least 3 years. Based upon the response or the evaluation, you will be given a go-ahead to actually appear for this certification. In terms of which certification is easier to pass, CPAC, I believe, is the easiest among the three that we have discussed so far. DHS certification is time consuming because you have to go through every module to go to the next module and take the final certification. The final certification actually takes 3 to 4 hours because it's not simply multiple choice questions. You will be provided with actual websites to test for and then make your selection from the given options. It's not tough, but it's time consuming. And lastly, web accessibility specialist. This is the toughest. As I said, you need to have knowledge of your HTML, JavaScript, ARIA attributes, accessibility testing, everything. It tests everything along with the laws governing accessibility. I'm looking into my chat. There's a question from Dilip. Please make videos for screen readers, users, or tutorials with NVDA so that visually impaired people can also learn. Yes, Dilip, that's the goal. I have been using NVDA, JAWS, and VoiceOver, all three screen readers, to give you a perspective how each screen reader is different from the other one and how you as a tester can test and what is the right accessibility testing routine. The other question from Shankara is for UI UX, which certification is good? For user experience designers, Shankara, I would say CPAC is their best bet because in that case, they just need to understand what are the different type of personas that we are catering to, like what kind of disabilities on the internet we have to adhere to, so that they can design with inclusion in mind, right? So CPAC is the right certification for them. And in fact, CPAC is the only certification that product owners or product managers also go for because they don't need to have code level understanding, but they need to understand what accessibility is, why do we need it, and what are the laws governing for it. Please let me know if that addresses your question, Dilip and Shankara. Okay, moving on. Which VCAG standards should we use? So as you already know, VCAG 2.2 was released in October 2023. However, Department of Homeland Security here in States is still adhering to VCAG 2.1, which means either you can go with VCAG 2.1 or 2.2. However, most successful organizations, they go for VCAG 2.2 AA standards because that's the latest and it protects you with any new modifications that Department of Homeland Security does at their conformance levels. So you should always go with the latest standards, and that's VCAG 2.2 AA conformance levels. The next question I have is, as a tester, do I need to know about ARIA and HTML? The short answer for this is yes, because as an accessibility tester, your job is not just to say, hey, this is broken. The expectations from you as an accessibility tester is to let your developer know why that is broken in the first place. And that's only possible when you have a sound understanding of HTML and ARIA attributes. So if you are getting an error that ARIA label is not supported on a dev, you have to ensure, because you need to be very clear whether ARIA attributes are supported on dev or they work better on labels or input fields only. Similarly, if something is broken in the HTML itself, you need to ensure that because of this, a label is not linked with the input field using the for attribute. That's the kind of understanding you must have to call yourself an accessibility tester. Please let me know in the chat section whether this addresses your question. Dilip, there is a response from you saying no. If you can put in the chat which question you are addressing that for. Moving on, the next one I have is, can you please provide list of free resources? Yes, there are a lot of free resources available online. Let me go to my Chrome browser. There is an accessibilityweekly.com website that publishes articles on weekly basis related to web accessibility. So any new development happening in the accessibility space, this is my go-to website to look for. It covers vast number of topics ranging from your UI UX designers, developers, testers, and accessibility as a whole. How you as an accessibility tester at the organization level can ensure that accessibility is core part of your web development. So Accessibility Weekly is the #1 place that I go to. Apart from this, you can watch my videos on YouTube and then on medium.com. I'm not sure if you have seen any articles of mine from medium.com. If I go to my storage, or let's go to my profile. So these are the different articles that I have published related to web accessibility. In case you prefer reading over watching videos, then this is your go-to place. Always start with Accessibility Weekly and then use medium.com as a place for accessibility related articles. Next, it says you spoke about the right testing routine, but why does it matter? It's critical to follow the right steps while you are testing for accessibility, because if you miss any of those steps, the likelihood of missing some accessibility bugs is very high. So if you are not starting with automated plugins and directly jumping into your manual testing, you might miss reporting the low-hanging fruits that your automated plugins can identify. Automation is there for a reason, and it's to make the best use of it. Always use automated plugins first. So the best testing routine would be start with your automated plugins, identify all the accessibility issues that you can find, like missing alt text for images, poor color contrast, and all those low-hanging fruits. You know that you have been testing it for so long. Then jump into the manual testing. Start with keyboard only. Understand what is the tabbing order or the focus order of the page. Ensure you fully understand the application before you start with the manual testing even. Then at the last point is to start a screen reader. Never start your testing with a screen reader on, because the chances are you will miss the corner case scenarios. If you recall, is accessibility only for people who are blind? If the answer to that question is no, because we have to cater to multiple personas or multiple disabilities. If we are only testing with a screen reader, then we are missing out on different personas. That's where having the right testing routine is critical. And if you're wondering what exactly that is, I have another video on my YouTube channel. Please go watch it and let me know if you still have any questions. I'm looking into my chat. There's a question from Dilip. Is CSS required for accessibility testing? Basic understanding of CSS is required, Dilip, right? Because there are scenarios that an element is in the DOM. However, that is hidden from a screen reader because we used display none. So if you know that display none will cause a screen reader to not read it by a screen reader, then yes, having a basic understanding of CSS is a must. Let me check my chat again. There are no more questions. Okay, we can continue. The next one is, how can I prepare for an interview? Now, if you have been trying to get into the accessibility roles, like as an accessibility tester, there are certain set of questions that are asked again and again, and I have compiled a list of 50 questions that you can look into, and I'm releasing that video tonight. And I say tonight, it's going to be tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Indian Standard Time or 9:30 Eastern today. That video is a compilation of the most commonly asked interview questions for web accessibility testers. That will give you a good insight on how to prepare for the interview, what kind of questions are being asked, which sections you need to focus more on. Please go watch that video. Let me know if I missed anything. And if that helped you, please put it in the chat. The next one is how to grow in the accessibility space. Now, the first step is to get into the accessibility space is by joining as an accessibility tester if that's what you're looking for. So having the right certifications like THS Trusted Tester is the first step that you can take, because that gives you the credibility that yes, you understand how to test for accessibility. And as you grow with experience, you learn more about accessibility, you learn about different screen readers, how a voiceover works on your phones, how TalkBack works on your Android devices. It gives you more clarity, and then you can make another shift, understanding about CPAC, getting the WS, ensuring that you are growing your knowledge, and you're not only limited to accessibility testing, you are partnering with your developers, helping them resolve the issues. From that point onwards, you grow when you understand both coding and testing. You make a shift left further, ensuring you're helping your designers to design with accessibility in mind. So for example, if your designer is working and have created drag and drop feature, it's your responsibility as an accessibility specialist saying drag and drop might work for certain set of people. We need to provide alternative means, single pointer selections, to ensure that there is an alternative mechanism too, that they can use buttons only to make or achieve the same functionality. So this is how you grow. You first step into accessibility testing, you partner with developers, and then you make a further shift on the left side working with designers. And when you have that intense knowledge, that wealth of knowledge, you work with the product owners, helping them understand how much effort it's gonna take for the entire product to be developed with accessibility in mind. You provide estimates like, okay, for a designer, this is the additional level of effort is needed to design with accessibility in mind. For developers, if they are working on a single page, this is the percentage of additional effort that is needed. And then for testing, you know, because you have been testing for so far. So this is how you grow in the accessibility space. Please use the chat feature if this resonates and you understand how you can grow in the accessibility domain. I'm looking at the chat. There's a question from Sai. Are freshers really considered for accessibility positions, Param? I am seeing a lot of openings for accessibility testers, Sai. And if you are part of my WhatsApp group, I have been posting a lot of job openings, both in India and States along with Canada. Now, they are not specifically looking for freshers. They are looking for someone with DHS certification. So if you have a DHS Trusted Tester certification, Sai, you have a high probability of landing the job. You just need to ensure you have that certification and you are practicing continuously. Even if you're not working for someone, having the practical knowledge and going through the interview process in the right manner, addressing their questions, there are high probability of landing the job site. So if you're not part of my WhatsApp group, please join the WhatsApp group that I have. links should be in the description of this video or any other video that I've posted on YouTube. But that's a great question, Sai. Thanks for asking. Any other question you have before I jump on to the last question that I have received so far? You can please feel free to use the chat feature, ask your question. This is your opportunity to ask any question related to web accessibility. Okay, while you are typing your questions, the last question that I have received is, accessibility testing jobs are available, but pay seems low. How to earn a better package? Now, question 13 is directly linked with question number 12, right? Because as you step into accessibility, yes, the entry level job might not be high paying, but as you grow your knowledge about accessibility, as you keep on adding value to the organization by partnering with your developers first, designers, and then product owners, you are becoming invaluable, and that's getting recognized, right? Once you grow at that level, the package that's bound to increase, right? So accessibility testing job is your step number 1. Reaching to partnering with product owner is step level 4. Once you reach that level and on the way on that journey, your package keeps improving. And nowadays I'm seeing a lot of job openings for web accessibility testers and experts, because everyone is going digital, right? So there is a huge demand for people with accessibility knowledge. And if you have the right certifications with you, you have the edge as compared to the regular manual testers. Okay, so question number 12 partially answered your question 13. Please use the chat window to let me know if it addresses your question. The other question that I have from Shankara is, how many attempts can take for exams? Shankara, are you asking for DHS trusted tester? If you're asking for DHS trusted tester, there are 3 attempts that you can take, Shankara, and the time that you have is 3 days. So in 3 days, you have 3 attempts. And if you don't, okay, you said it's for CPI, let me complete my thought on DHS. If you are unfortunately unable to complete or pass this DHS in 3 attempts, you have to go through, I believe, the practice exam again, and then again email the DHS service team to enable your final exam. So you will get another 3 attempts. For CPAC, there is only 1 attempt, Shankara. You have to pass CPAC with, I believe, 75%, if I'm not wrong. Please put it in the chat if you are certain that it's 75%. But you get 1 chance to clear it. On your reattempt, Shankara, however, the fees is less than the first time fees that you pay for CPAC. Okay. But my understanding, Shankara, for any certification, right? If you have gone through the body of knowledge for CPAC or DHS trusted tester, I have students who have passed it in the first attempt. Okay. A couple of months ago, I got a message from one of our viewers. He said, by just watching my videos, he was able to clear the interview, right? So I believe videos are adding value to you. And as I said, most of my students are passing the certification in the first attempt. Given that they are dedicated, they have invested time, and they are getting their doubts cleared. The new comment that I have is from Sai. I completed the DHS certification following a 6-week plan. Thanks, Param, for that. See, thanks for confirming that, Sai. I appreciate that input. Yeah, thanks, Shankar. I appreciate that comment as well. But these were the 13 questions that I have received so far. And if I go back to the top of the chat, Vishal, you asked, I'm an experienced person, how to start accessibility career? To address that question, I want to share a website Let me go to, okay. So there's a website dedicated for accessibility jobs, and that's accessibility A11 by jobs.com. This is the website that I would highly recommend to go and check out. They have jobs only related to accessibility. There's nothing else that they speak about. Okay. So if you are looking for accessibility roles, be it accessibility tester and expert, this is your place. This is your go-to website. Use this website. There are a lot of job openings and they continuously keep posting. So if you look at when they got posted, it was 1 day ago, 3 days ago. So this is your go-to website for finding accessibility jobs. Okay. And if you need additional help, right? Like, Param, what about other job openings? I continuously use our WhatsApp group to share any job openings, both India, US, and Canada, because that's where I have most of you joining from. And in case you're joining from any other country, please put it in the chat and please join the WhatsApp group. I'll be more than happy to share any job openings related to web accessibility. Vishal, does that address your question? You can use the chat feature to say yes or no. Going back to Dilip, Dilip, you said no. Can you please clarify which question was that for? I will be more than happy to provide any input on that. Okay, we still have time, guys. We still have 20 more minutes. I scheduled it for 1 hour. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have for web accessibility. There is a question from Arpit. Hi Param, I'm new to accessibility testing and was asked to upskill. Can you guide me how to start and available resources? Need to start from zero for accessibility testing. Hey Arpit, I'm not sure when you joined, but we discussed about how you can upskill yourself by getting the right certifications, right? There are, can you put it in the chat, which certification do you have? Because we spoke about DHS Trusted Tester, we spoke about CPAC and WA certifications. So those are the means that you can leverage to upskill yourself by gaining more knowledge. And we also discovered how you can grow as an accessibility expert, that you can have a good understanding of HTML along with ARIA attributes and then combine it with your design knowledge. Because as you start testing, as you start partnering with your developers, you build an eye for accessibility. The moment you look at a website, you find accessibility issues, right? That gives you an unconditional edge when you work with your designers, right? Because they might not be aware that there are different types of disabilities that they have to adhere to, and you are there, you become their go-to person to help them design with accessibility in mind, right? You're saying I am from automation testing background and leading few projects, joined just now. Okay, thanks for that, Arpit. Yeah, so that's good to have. The automation testing background is really helpful, because nowadays what we are seeing, there is a boom about AI and how you can use automated plugins like AI powered plugins to automate your accessibility testing, right? That will be helpful for you when you are transitioning into web accessibility tester, right? So what the best thing to for you, Arpit, would be, once I upload this session, maybe 1 week from now, after my editor does the editing, go watch this video again and then drop your questions in the comment section. We have covered everything that you are asking. Okay, but thanks for asking and thanks for sharing that you're from the automation testing background. What questions do you have, guys? We still have time. We have 18 more minutes. Please make best use of this time. Okay, let's do this thing. How many of you have seen the latest video that I posted last week? Have you seen this video where I tested ICICI Bank, whether it's accessible with a screen reader or not? Please use the chat feature, say yes or no. Yeah, Shankara, thanks for that. ICICI Bank side. Yeah, there are two videos related to ICICI. One that talks about how you can use automated plugins and keyboard only testing to test a real website like ICICI Bank. And guys, there were a lot of accessibility issues that we identified. And the latest video on ICICI Bank Accessible Part 2, I spoke about whether it's accessible using a screen reader like NVDA or not. So if you haven't seen it, please go and watch it. And as I was sharing earlier, tonight I'm gonna upload a video, and that's about the top 50 questions, the most asked questions for web accessibility testing interviews. Right? That's going to be live at 9:30 Eastern, or if you're in from India, that's going to be 7 a.m. Monday morning. Okay, so if you have any questions, like what kind of questions are being asked in the interview, please go and watch it and put it in your comments. We still have time. We have 14 minutes. If you have any question, please put it in the chat. Be it anything. Don't worry. This is a judgment-free zone. Okay, so please ask anything related to accessibility. Let's not discuss anything related to politics. Okay, there's a lot going on in this world. So let's keep our questions related to accessibility. Okay, in case you don't have any more questions for me, or you're feeling shy to put it in the chat, you can connect with me via Instagram. My Instagram handle is Singh, same as that of my YouTube channel. If you have any questions and you are not on social media, you can drop me an email at yourskillssing@gmail.com. Yep, I can see a question from Sai. It's really hard for me searching for an accessibility job here without experience. Yes, Sai, it's challenging given the how tough the job market is, right? Do you have a DHS certification? Yes, you clarified that you cleared DHS. Yeah. So what I would suggest, Sai, start reaching out to people. Start freelancing, right? Use websites like WeWork. Okay, you can get free gigs, or you can get paid gigs on WeWork. Okay, use that website to gain experience, and that's the same experience that you can highlight in your resumes, right? Saying that I worked as a freelancer and this is what I identified and this is my experience, right? So start with freelancing in case you don't have any experience working with a big organization. The other question that I have from Darshit is, what about accessibility from a developer perspective? Yes, Darshit, yes. There is a lot to cover when it comes to web accessibility for developers, right? To give you a brief insight on what needs from an accessibility developer standpoint, you need to have sound understanding of HTML tags, the semantic HTML tags. You need to have a solid understanding of ARIA attributes, when to use it, and what is the ARIA smell. Like if you're overusing ARIA, what's wrong with that? You need to have a solid understanding of VCAG 2.2 AA conformance levels, right? You need to understand all three to ensure that you have the right understanding as an accessibility developer. We can have another session on what kind of questions are getting asked for an accessibility developer, what skills are needed for a developer, right? I have created few videos on how to make certain components web accessible. There's also another video that I created, how you can become an accessibility developer. That's on my YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, I would advise to go and watch it. I think there are many success criteria which are debatable, like if it passes criteria or not. Web accessibility, Darshit, is not yes or no question. There is always a gray area, right? And as you grow in accessibility, as you grow your experience accessibility, you understand that what is right and versus what is wrong. I'll give the example that I can give of the ambiguity here is in VCAG 2.2 AA new target size. The minimum target size that they are saying is 24 by 24 pixels. However, they are giving exceptions. If you are having a button which is equivalent on the same page that is smaller than 24 by 24 pixel, that also passes the success criteria. Now my question is, if my user is at the bottom of the page and the button over there is not meeting 24 by 24 pixels, then that should be a failure. But this success criteria says there's an exception because there is another button at the top of the page which is meeting 24 by 24. So you are right, there are success criteria that requires discussions, but with your knowledge, with your experience, you have to marriage VCAG with usability. At the end of the day, we are ensuring that our websites are usable by our users, right? Making accessible, sure, but they should be usable as well. I believe that addresses your question, Darshit, but that's a great question to ask. Thanks for asking it. What other questions do you have? Okay, in case you don't have any more questions, or if you have questions, please feel free to connect with me on Instagram or drop me your questions using my Gmail account. I'll be uploading a new video tonight and I'll be watching for how many of you commented or liked it. Please, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, there's another question from Darshit. Are web and desktop app criteria same? I mean, both follows VCAG. I believe you're asking whether the web applications or the desktop applications. Can you clarify that, Darshit? The crux is yes, both follows VCAG. Now it differs for mobile application because you don't have drag and drop feature on your mobile applications. You don't have tabbing order, right? So those differ slightly, but at the end, it's VCAG that you have to follow carefully. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, Darshan. Yes, VCAG is your source of truth. Okay, I believe there are no more questions for me. We can end this session today. Thank you so much for joining. There were a lot of good questions. I would say great questions being asked. And again, if you have any more questions, reach out to me on Instagram and put it in the put your questions using the Gmail if you require to. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining. I'll see you next time around. Stay safe. Stay happy. Bye.